On your Thursday edition of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors fall to the New York Knicks for the third time in a month, but this was a losing formula I think you can live with.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, January the 9th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, link in the description of the podcast. Please come hang out. It's a great place to come talk with pals about the Toronto Raptors, trades, the offseason, things in the future where things will be better, all that good stuff going on in the Discord. You can also, of course, subscribe for free to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. The QR code is on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just go click through there and sign on up, or you can go to the link in the description of the podcast, sign up for free. It just goes right to your inbox every single day, 5 days a week of me writing about your Toronto Raptors. Katie Heindl in there with League at Large stories 4 times a week. Michael Shearer from Basketball Poetry once a week as well. Josh Lloyd fantasy tips to help you win your league. It's all going on in the newsletter. Thank you very much for subscribing and supporting. All right, today's show is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we get rolling here on a Thursday edition of the show to talk about a Toronto Raptors 112-98 loss to the New York Knicks at MSG on a Wednesday night. The first of a back-to-back. They take on the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. That'll go swimmingly, right? Maybe a letdown game for the Cavs after beating the Thunder last night. Who knows? But either way, the Raptors fall. And look, the fourth quarter of this game was not pretty. They go, and I think it was like a 20-5 run to start the quarter in the first 7 minutes or so for the Knicks to put this one away. They were up by 10 through 3 quarters. And yeah, the fourth quarter paints this one a little uglier, as much as Chris Boucher's late game heater kind of pulled it back, saved the net rating of your Toronto Raptors in this one, if there is any net rating left to be saved. But I do think this was the kind of game where the first 3 quarters, the good stuff that happened in there is like genuinely okay to feel all right about. To me, this was a game where the formula for the loss was something you can accept and live with. We'll get into that on today's show. We're going to talk about the starters and their pretty stout performance in this one. We'll get into the bench not being so good, the good, the bad, and the coming up. Let's talk starters off the top, though. It was, I think, a pretty encouraging run for the starting 5 of Immanuel Quickley, Gradey Dick, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, Jakob Poeltl. 17 minutes played. They score 36 points. They give up 31, a +5 overall. The defensive rating in those 17 minutes for the Raptors starters, 96.9. Very, very good against the New York Knicks, who are a very, very good offensive team, largely going toe-to-toe, who are the starters with the Knicks starters. I don't think you can come away feeling anything but good about the effort the starters put it in this game in their 17 minutes of action. And I think there's still a lot of fruit left on that tree. You know, I don't think this was RJ Barrett's best offensive game. I don't think Jakob Poeltl had himself an incredible night or anything like that. Scottie Barnes was only 7 of 15. We'll get into his defense, which was immaculate in this one. You know, Quickley was really the only guy, the starters, who like popped and had like, you know, an above average-ish type of game. And yet the fit of those guys, the cohesive sort of complementary skills of all those guys on the floor, even with Gradey Dick playing really bad basketball right now, continues to be in some kind of bad way. The starters, like the geometry of those guys on the floor, the way they fit, the way Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl are able to cover for a lot of the defensive shortcomings of the guys on the perimeter. And we'll get into, you know, RJ Barrett and Quickley in particular, I think, having very good defensive games in this one. I just think, you know, I was a big believer in this starting 5 coming into this season. It's been a long road to actually get to see them play. They got cooked in the third quarter against the Bucks to sewer a pretty good start for them in that game against Milwaukee. The numbers came out looking ugly. The numbers in this one looking a little bit better. And I just think eye test wise, it just looked more cohesive. It looks like it works and fits. And when Immanuel Quickley is, kind of doing his demon thing in transition, pulling up for threes, getting into the teeth of the defense, which I think he's done a really nice job of with that handle. He seems like he's got a little more burst, getting deeper into the defense, getting paint touches, keeping the dribble alive, scoring at the rim even a little bit. I think there's just like a lot to build on from the starters in this game. And we've talked about it. Defense is going to be the single biggest question for that 5-man group. You look at it and it's obvious. Gradey Dick, not a good defender. Immanuel Quickley has his moments of being all right and not so good. RJ Barrett has been kind of a disaster defensively this season. And I do think Quickley and Barrett in particular, two of their better defensive games as Raptors. I think Barrett had maybe the defensive stop of his life, certainly his Raptors career, when OG Anunoby, the strongest man alive, was trying to back him down in the first half, and Barrett just like held his position, super strong, got handsy without fouling, forced a turnover. That was beautiful to see. I thought the defense in this one in the first half in particular, they hold the Knicks to 55 points. I thought the defense was on a string and connected. The stuff we talked about a couple days ago, where that just was not the case, where the defense was completely just unhinged from itself and the rotations were wild and there was no tightness. There was no connectivity to how they were playing. There was no discipline to their rotations. It was just like, all right, well, there's a guy over there. I guess two guys will rotate over there. And then that guy's open over there. Like there's just no sort of sense to how they were rotating on defense in that Bucks game or really at any point over the last month or so. In this game, it was on point. It was targeted. It was guys making the right help and sort of rotation decisions. I thought it was a really impressive effort from a lineup that doesn't have a ton of defensive talent, but man, oh man, can Scottie Barnes cover for a lot of it. I thought he was spectacular defensively, in particular in the first three quarters. Again, the fourth quarter of this one got ugly. It fell away from them. That's going to happen. We're grading on a curve here, man. It's baby steps season. Yes, it'd be nice to have a 48-minute effort, but this is an 8-29 basketball team that's played awful ball of late. We're just looking for little signs of life, little glimmers here and there of something better that lies ahead. And Scottie Barnes defending his ass off like he did in this game is, I think, a pretty encouraging thing. I think his defensive jump this year has gone a little bit slept on. I think he is like a legitimate defensive difference maker right now. I think last year took the big jump as like an event creator, all the stocks, blocks, steals, kind of creating these big defensive plays. I don't know if he kind of had it as like an all-encompassing, like sort of like impactful difference maker on defense. I think his perimeter defense still left a lot to be desired. It was more of his help and off-ball defense that really shone last year. This year, it's all over the place. His on-ball defense is better. His rim protection is better and more sort of, I think, in position and calculated. He's not, jumping for steals that aren't or blocks that aren't there. I just think he is this really nice kind of mess cleaner for this Raptors defense, even in this game where I think Jakob Poeltl, understandably against Karl-Anthony Towns, who is awesome, has been fantastic this year, is probably going to make a first or second team All-NBA and very much deserves to. He might make it on some MVP ballots. He's been that awesome. And he's the type of guy as a stretch big that's going to pull Jakob Poeltl out. Yak got cooked on a couple of blow-bys. That's going to happen against Cat. But I do think Scottie, as that guy on the back line to kind of insulate against those situations, was really damn good in this game and offered just like a lot of integrity to the defense. I was really impressed in the first half of this one, man. Like, I think you can only take good things away from that. Even the third quarter, the Raptors starters played well. Bench comes in, less of a good story there as well, which we'll get into. But yeah, I think, Quickley too, defensively. I mean, we'll talk about his offense. I'll probably get into that a little bit later in the show in the good, bad, and at the end of the podcast. But I think defensively, Quickley had a few really nice flourishes in this one of just looking stout on the ball and, more importantly, looking really good in rotation, really good contests. He's so long for a guy of his size. He's a good shot contester, kind of always has been. I think he had a few good moments of that, rotating out, closing out nicely and neatly and forcing misses. I think there was this one possession in the first half where he blocks a three in the corner. And then on the same possession after they inbound it, he has this beautiful help rotation at the bottom of the defense. He's in the low man spot. A guy drives in from the left corner and he just gets big, huge, gets right in his way, Marc Gasol style, but 6'3" instead of 7'1". Just gets in the way of the driver, forces a kick, and there's a miss on a three on the other end of the floor, on the other side of the floor. Or no, it was a shot clock violation that ended up turning into. I just think, Quickley, Barrett, two of those guys, if they're going to play average defense, Scottie Barnes is going to give them a chance to have a really actually viable defense with this group. It happened last year. The starters with Gary Trent Jr. in place of Gradey Dick were a good defensive unit as the second most used lineup for the Raptors. Like, that is some of the best data we have on these players, and it was extremely encouraging and positive. We saw a lot of those signs in this game as well. Quickley offensively, we'll get into him a little bit later on, as I said, but very good. The starters were great. I think if you're going to have a game where the starters are, going to win their minutes against a good team, play as well as they did for long stretches of this one, and lose it because the bench is a disaster, like, I think you can live with that. There are reasons why the bench is a disaster. Some of them will get better in time. Some of them may not, but it may not really matter because the guys who are on the bench, not necessarily all part of the long-term plans. We will get into the bench, what stunk, and is there any hope at all for Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown to turn things around? We'll do that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to go buy tickets for the sporting events that you want to go to. It's a great app. I use it all the time when I'm going to see whatever it might be, a basketball game, a baseball game in the summertime, a concert, a comedy show. It's all there for you to go peruse. Game Time picks, filters out the fluff, and makes it super easy to find the best deals on the tickets for the events you want to go to. Plain and simply, you get seat views so you can see exactly where you'll be sitting, what you're going to see from your sight lines. And maybe you pick a set of seats that don't have a great sight line. Great. You go pick another one and you get to see the seat view from there as well. Great for if you're going to a stadium for the first time. I went to Pittsburgh and Cleveland this summer to watch baseball a couple of times. And yeah, I'd never been to those stadiums before. The seat views were super handy in figuring out what seats were going to be best for me. You can even, like, if you're at a baseball game, if you're in those seat views, you can like track where the sun is from the seats and kind of say, oh, like, I don't want to be in the sun for the entire game, so I can sit over here where it's more shady. It's really, really helpful. Go check it out. Game Time. It's wonderful. You take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Well, it's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control of the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. Back at it here on your Thursday edition of the show, talking Raptors, Knicks, and talked about the good stuff, the reasons why it's a formula you can live with if they're going to lose like that, with the starters showing out well and everyone else maybe not doing so. But we got to talk about the guys who maybe did not do so. We got to talk about the bench, which was very bad in this game and has been bad over the last little stretch here. They're kind of getting back into the thing that they had maybe near the end of the Pascal era, where it's like, oh, they got 5 good players, the starters are great, and then the bench are just kind of pissing everything away. The in-between lineups are tough to find, all of that. Very similar in this one. Jamal Shead, minus 21. Almost impressive to pull that off in 16 minutes of action, as Immanuel Quickley goes plus 7 in a game they lost by 14. Really tough stuff from Jamal Shead in this one. Very much looking like a rookie. Look, rookies are bad. Rookies lose minutes. This is a universal rule of NBA basketball for the most part. If you're a rookie and you're being asked to do things, you're probably going to fail a lot. That's part of the deal. And I know it's not been a great run here for Shead. He's looked pretty rough, but this is what learning on the fly, trial by fire looks like for young guards. And for me, I know there's this whole, put him in the G League. He's got to go learn in the G League thing. Maybe that's true, but I also think NBA reps are the best way to learn. And if you're Jamal Shead and you're playing backup point guard, which is the role he figures to occupy if he's going to be a long-term NBA player, getting those trial by fire minutes as the backup point guard for this team in a season where clearly optimizing winning basketball is not the thing they're trying to do, I see absolutely no problem with it. And you live with the games where he's going to go and have a minus 21 and not really do a whole lot to drive the team. It's just the way it is with rookies. This is life when you have a super young team. This applies to Jakob Poeltl as well. I'm big on Jakob Poeltl. I think his package of skills is really interesting. He's super young. He's like barely 20 years old. Sometimes you're going to go 0 for 5 and not really do a whole lot in 22 minutes. And that's just the way it is. It's not an indictment of Jakob Poeltl as a player or a prospect. It's just what rookies do. Rookies are bad. Rookies are inconsistent. Rookies lose their minutes. And man, oh man, did the rookies lose their minutes in this one. And yet, I did not find Jakob Poeltl or Jamal Shead to be the biggest culprits for the bad bench minutes in this game. And that brings us to Kelly Olynyk, which, look, man, it pains me to say it because I identify so deeply with a man in his 30s who like just is sore all the time. That is me. That is my life. I am in my 30s and I am sore all the time. And I really want Kelly Olynyk to persevere and survive through that. And yet he just doesn't look like he has it right now. And it's hurting them big time when he's on the floor. And it's not hurting him in the way that you'd maybe think. You know, his defense is not good. Like, let's be clear about that. His on-off defensive metrics are kind of showing that they're basically the same level of defense when he's out there versus when he's not. That speaks to the team as a whole not being very good at defense right now. But the offense is cratering when he's on the floor. They're 3.5 points per 100 possessions worse with Kelly Olynyk on the floor. He's not doing the connective, sort of tied all together, grease the wheels of the offense thing he was doing for those Jazz teams the last couple of years, which I think was ideally the hope for the Raptors when they traded for him in the Ochai Agbaji deal as well. I think they were really thinking like, okay, like this is a guy who can give a stable floor to our second units, who can kind of provide a canvas for good developmental ball for bench guys. And it's just not working that way right now. He just does not look like he has it. He looks slow. He's getting blown by a ton on defense. And on offense, like the shots aren't falling. It's not coming super crisply. Like the Raptors offense kind of looks like it's running in cement, especially when he's on the floor. And they're just not getting into their stuff. There's just not a lot of pop with the way Kelly Olynyk's playing right now. And they're getting like destroyed on the glass when he's out there as well. They get worse both in offensive and defensive rebounding when he's on the floor. And it's just, you know, for a team that leans on offensive rebounding as a big way to subsist on offense, like it's pretty tough, man. It sucks to see because I like Kelly Olynyk a lot. You root for the guy 100%, but it's just been a really tough go for him. And you're not going to win a ton of minutes with him out there right now, even if he's out there with better players, right? I had high hopes for the Scottie Barnes, Kelly Olynyk duo, but Kelly Olynyk's defense is so rough right now that it's just tough to cover for that at a big position where he's asked to defend the rim and defend fives. It's just not working at the moment. And so that's a big reason why last night was kind of a disaster. He was somehow a +5 in this game. I don't really understand how that happened. He was 3 of 4 overall. I guess he hit his shots when he got them, but overall, defensively, it's just looking pretty tough right now. And I think he's a big reason why the bench is looking rough, as is Bruce Brown, who did not magically fall into a random positive rating on the night. He was a -16. By the way, I think Kelly ended up +5 because he was out there when Chris Boucher was going nuts and was a +11. So good for him. Either way, Bruce Brown, he's been super rough, man. Not a positive way to paint this one. He was great in his return game. Since then, it has been an extremely rough watch with him. They've yet to figure out how to use Bruce Brown. They're not incorporating him super well. And even the moments where they have figured out, like, ooh, short roll stuff. He's a screen and dive guy, like he has been in the past. He's not finishing in those situations. He had a layup last night that he duffed, running pick and roll with Scottie Barnes, which has kind of been the most useful use of Bruce Brown so far is screening for Scottie Barnes. You get two differently sized guys. Maybe you're getting a switch for Scottie. Like I think it makes sense in theory to have Bruce as a guy who's a good short roll player screening for Scottie. He's just not executing in those situations right now. Maybe it comes around. He didn't play for 8 months. He's very rusty, obviously. But right now, it's like, what are you getting for Bruce Brown at the deadline? What team is going to jump through the hoops it's going to take to acquire a $23 million salary guy within this apron structure in the CBA and, you know, pay to do it, right? Like it's just, there's going to be, I think, sort of cheaper options for teams out there looking for an 8th, 9th man than Bruce Brown, and he's not exactly showing. And look, he'll look better on a better team. I'm certain of that. We saw what he looked like playing with Nikola Jokic. Part of that is Nikola Jokic is a genius who makes everybody look a lot better. But we've seen it. It's just we're now a couple of years away from it, and it just might be that he's not going to have the chance to flash what he can do on a good team playing for this team. And if he's also playing poorly, it's just going to crater the value. I don't really see there being a deal out there for Bruce Brown right now. Maybe some team gets desperate. Maybe there's an injury and a team needs like a wing type or a guard type. But right now it's looking pretty rough. And you just hope Bruce Brown can kind of turn it around for his sake, right? Super likable guy. I have nothing against Bruce Brown as a dude, rooting for him big time to, sort things out. But it's been a pretty rough go these last few games. And right now, like, again, the starters can do all they want. If the bench is going to hemorrhage minutes and the second or the transitional lineups are not going to make sense, then they're not going to win games. And you can have all the silver linings you want. The results are not going to be wins on the board for the Raptors, which is maybe not what a lot of people want anyway. Like, we're far past this being a push for the play-in type of year or anything like that. But the bench, certainly a problem. And it's going to get even worse if the bad that we're going to talk about coming up in the next segment of the show is anything prolonged. Yeah. Ochai Agbaji went down. Not great. And we'll get into that, what it means, and the good and the around that as well, coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate College Basketball HC. I want to take a second to tell you about a brand new mobile game that you got to be really excited about. It's Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed of being a college basketball coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program, from recruiting players and hiring coaching staffs to overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals, and managing scholarships. It's all in your hands. When it comes to game time, you get to drop offensive plays and set your strategy. That way, the way you play won't just affect your season as well. It's going to shape the future of your program all the way through the annals of time. It's a game that lets you feel the full weight of what it means to be a head coach and lead your team to glory. Here's a special offer for Locked On NBA listeners. Use promo code LOCKEDONCBB, all caps, inside the game store and get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. To download Ultimate College Basketball HC, just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Wrapping it up here on your Thursday edition of the show, the good, the bad, and the way we wrap up every single episode of this here podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a little bit intrigued about the latest in Raptors hoop. The good, I'm going to circle back to Immanuel Quickley. I thought Quickley was super fun in this game. I think he was really, this is point guard basketball. Talked about it last week. Having a legitimate point guard out there, guiding the ship, bombing threes the way he did in this one, getting downhill. I think, to be a +7 in a game you lose by 14, for things to fall out so badly whenever he's sat, that's what you want to see from Immanuel Quickley. If Quickley can be driving positive winning minutes, like that is what you want from your point guard. And I think he did that masterfully in this game. This was not even, I think, the best of Quickley. Like, I think there's still some more to tap into. He only took 6 threes. I think there's more volume to be found there. I think the off-ball stuff with him, they're still kind of figuring it out. There have been some moments here and there. I think his first 3 in this game was a nice little bit of off-ball action where Scottie Barnes found him. There's certainly some more of that to tap into. But I do think the on-ball stuff with him has been largely quite encouraging. Continues to be a good guy with ball security and all that stuff. Just 2 turnovers in this one, 5 assists. I think, maybe left a couple assists on the vine with missed shots and stuff like that. But overall, Immanuel Quickley, my point guard, super thrilled to have a dude running the show who's got that kind of juice. And the defense as well in this one, I think really kind of made the whole package pretty interesting with him. I have no issues or concerns about Immanuel Quickley going forward, even if, he's making $32.5 million a year. It's not that much money when in a rising cap world. He's not under the burden of being an all-star even. That's just going to be like normal starting basketball player money. I think you're looking at that as a deal that's going to age nicely. And if he can kind of level up the scoring touch around the rim or, enhance the playmaking even just a little bit, tap into some more defense, just like incremental improvements with all the stuff he does, you're looking at a damn good player in Immanuel Quickley, someone who I think is very much someone worth the bet the Raptors made on him. And this was a really good example of why. The bad is Ochai Agbaji getting hurt, lower back contusion after taking a knee to the chest. I'm not sure how anatomy works to make that a back injury, but sucks for Ochai to take that. He's the only guy who's played every game for the Raptors this season. He's been a real minutes horse, innings eater for this team. And to lose him makes the bench that much more of a big old question mark, right? Like, I think having him as someone maybe you could close games with if Gradey Dick's struggling and Jakob Walter's struggling, you can just throw him in and have him be your fifth guy. That would have been a nice luxury to have. And again, we're not really sure. We'll find out, I'm sure, sometime soon here. Maybe not today because it's a back-to-back. They won't be practicing, but hopefully we get some detail before the game tonight regarding Ochai. Maybe he plays. Maybe it's just a quick knock and he was a stinger and he's back and good to go. Either way, Ochai Agbaji getting hurt and missing any period of time is going to stink because the bench just badly needs functional NBA players right now. It looked for a while at the start of the year like this team had like legitimate functional depth in the second unit, and Jonathan Mobo fell off a little bit, hit the rookie wall. Jamal Shead's going through it a little bit right now. Jakob Walter's very up and down. Bruce Brown not doing much. Kelly Olynyk, obviously, we just talked about. Ochai is like the one guy who's the trusted hand off the bench, and if he's not going to be available, that's tough stuff. And for me is the transitional lineups for this team. Clearly still a work in progress. I'm for now happy and content to be thrilled that the starting lineup goes and has good minutes. To me, that's a win, baby. That's all I'm looking for at the moment. As time goes on, you're going to want to see mixes of 1, 2, 3 starters with bench guys start to have productive stretches out there. It can't just be that the starters only work when they're all there in support of one another, and you take one of the Jenga pieces out and the whole thing falls apart. It can't be like that all the way through. They're still tinkering. They're still figuring things out. I liked that. I don't think by my count there were any stretches of in-between lineups where there were no Barnes, Quickley, or Barrett on the floor in this game. A step up from the Bucks game. That's great to see. Never need to see all three of those guys on the bench together at any point. And so happy to see some progress there. And, at least not until garbage time, that is. And then, so, yeah, it's just they're going to have to find mixes that work. It's going to be tough. If Kelly Olynyk is a big fixture in these in-between lineups, they're going to have a hard time getting by because Kelly Olynyk's just playing so poorly right now. Maybe he turns it around. Maybe the back progressively gets better and he can kind of tap back into a younger version of himself. But if not, those in-between lineups are going to be tough. And I don't care who it is, whether it's Scottie, whether it's Quickley, whether it's both of them. As we saw at the start of the fourth quarter when they hemorrhaged all those points and lost, you're going to need to find ways to tie together these transitional lineups more effectively. Kelly's not going to be someone who's helping you do that right now. Again, I do think Jakob is going to have to be a big fixture in these groups. If you can go with Quickley Poeltl as a baseline for second units, maybe that's a way to milk some, positive minutes out of a second unit with, 3 bench guys in between. Maybe once Ochai's back, you go Ochai with Gradey and Jacoby, or Ochai with, Davion Mitchell and Jacoby or something like that. There's got to be ways to tie together those second units a little bit. Right now, they're still searching. And so for now, I'm just looking at the 17 to 22 minutes of starting lineup minutes to really keep me going, because what else can you really do right now, man? We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out, rocking with the show. As always, we'll be back again on Friday to talk about Raptors Cavs, which will definitely go well for the Raptors, right? Totally. Yeah. Hopefully the starters play well. That would be nice. The starters, I believe, have played. I guess they've only played a quarter and a half against the Cavs. And if you recall, the opening night against the Cavs, it went pretty well until Quickley went out. So maybe there's some hope that the Raptors starters at least can have themselves some fun. I do not think it's going to go super well for Kelly Olynyk against the Cavs bigs in those second units, but one can hope. We will leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. We will talk to you again on Thursday. In the meantime, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Go to the newsletter, subscribe there. It's free. It's great. You can also go and check out the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. You want to become part of our listener community. We'll leave it there. Thanks so much for hanging out. Bye-bye. Ooh.